In studio right now is Steve Hauck. Before we get to the accident, we're talking about this hurricane, and you're talking about 80-degree water that is very, very warm, and this is going to basically be a bullseye, has a bullseye on Florida. And after that, it's going to take a right-hand turn, at least that's what it looks like right now, and come up the coast. And the one thing the Carolinas don't need right now is more water.
No, and of course now that I do that work for the state incident management team, I sort of follow hurricanes a little bit, if you will. So, right, I think Florida, although they're going to get hit, that's a very narrow section of Florida there. So I think that's going to be the biggest concern is Carolina because they are overly saturated. They can't afford any more water there.
And one of the scary parts we were just talking about is how it didn't really make landfall anywhere like you thought it might have.
Nothing
like if it hit Cuba or any of the other areas there, it might have slowed down a little bit. But
not just slow down, but it usually weakens the storm when it hits land.
Right, and if you look at because of the water temperature, the ones that come in from the east, they sort of before they hit land, they sort of slow down a little bit, but the ones that come in from the west side, which there aren't many that do that.
Right.
Harvey did it last year. Charlie did it years ago and wiped out Punta Gorda, Florida. Those are the ones because the water temperature is 80, 81 degrees, 82 degrees, and those are the ones that pick up a lot of velocity there.
All right, I'm told here. Let's see, somebody's piping in on this. Let's see, I got to find it.
Already? I haven't even said anything.
You haven't said a word yet.
They knew you were coming. They knew you were coming.
On the legalities regarding a limousine driver, John says to legally drive a large limo in New York, you need a commercial Class B driver's license with a passenger endorsement. Ask Lieutenant Hauck, but I think this only applies to vehicles that can hold over 16 people. Although I'm told by a limousine service yesterday, the law has changed, and now all limousines have to be DOT certified, and the drivers must be DOT certified, no matter the size. If you're a commercial limo driver, you have to be certified by the DOT.
That was my understanding as well, because what they don't want is these conversions taking regular vehicles, essentially adding light materials to them and making them big without having the structural integrity.
So here's the thing. According to the limo guy that I spoke to yesterday, he said, for the most part, this is relatively new. The law has always been, so maybe it's over 16 passengers, whatever the law was. Most limos companies, many of them don't know. His company is completely certified. All of his drivers are certified. In fact, he's told me that his drivers, he specifically goes after school bus drivers because they're so trained for safety.
Yeah, and that large number of passengers already.
He also said they don't deal in the big SUVs, those big, large limos. He said because it's just not something that he gets into. And I'm not going to give his business. Nobody wants their names out there today with this horrible story.
No.
But when they're saying this driver was not certified, didn't have the proper license, you wonder, did he have the proper license but wasn't DOT certified like this limo company said to me yesterday? Probably only 20% of them are currently certified. So we don't know. I mean, the governor threw that out like he oftentimes throws things out during a parade, in this case yesterday. So you kind of wonder.
Yeah, I think as obviously as time goes on here,
we'll find out more.
The man's deceased, so there's no rush here. He's not sitting in a jail cell. So at this point, I think they'll take their time. There's obviously not going to, if there's criminal charges, it's going to be through the company.
I want to throw down a few things. You're coming. Let's scenarios. So you're in this SUV limo. There's probably a divider. Maybe the divider is shut.
It's a 2001.
2001. You're coming down this hill. You're accelerating, and possible medical emergency, heart attack from the driver. I mean, that's possible, right?
Absolutely, could be. It could be a vehicle malfunction.
Yeah. So if the brakes were to go, let's say. And by the way, you're coming down that hill 60 miles an hour with 17 passengers, 18 including yourself. Think about what we're at least at 1,700 pounds worth of people, or 1,800 pounds, about 2,000 pounds worth of people or more. 60 miles an hour down that grade, fast. Too fast.
Oh, incredibly fast.
Yeah,
And
how are you going to stop now?
Right, and you see, we've all pulled alongside of these vehicles, on the road, and they're massive vehicles, and that goes back to if it was converted properly, because part of that would have been the braking system, having a booster system, larger calipers, larger pads, because you're adding how much more to the weight of the vehicle, and plus you're going to put all those people in it. So there's a lot of things that come into it, and that, of course, is the challenge for law enforcement.
If your brakes went, what do you do?
There's
you got an emergency brake. You've got an emergency brake.
That wouldn't stop. That certainly wouldn't stop that vehicle.
Not with the weight of the vehicle. Right. Additionally, what if you just threw it in park? What if you threw it in reverse?
That wouldn't do it.
You don't think that would do
it?
It
would probably just destroy the transmission.
Yeah, it would go right through
point.
that. Yeah, I don't think.
And it looked
I guess
like when you go down that hill, if you see the pictures that we've seen, it almost looked like down in that parking lot there was a road that went around to the left of the creek.
That's right.
And it wasn't. And then he must have realized that's not a road, and then hit the parked vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, you have to assume that this limo driver, again, I'm not all that familiar. I've been in the area, but not all that familiar with it. These limo drivers sometimes drive distances to get to where they're going. And if he wasn't familiar with the particular area, I think that's a lot of hypothesis there. I think as time goes on, they'll figure out.
All right, so the vehicle witnesses at this point are saying 60 miles an hour. That 60 mile an hour thing that we're throwing around is absolute inaccuracy. It's just a witness saying, I think he was doing about 60 miles an hour.
Sure.
At this point, we really don't know how fast that limo was going. Based on impact, will they be able to tell us?
Well, not just impact. So
no skid marks.
Right. So the process is every vehicle has, if you will, a black box. So which I'm sure they already have. So they have that ECU out. They will look
even
at that.
Even a 2001?
Yep.
Okay.
So they'll look at that. They'll send that through the system. They'll get a whole bunch of data off that, and they'll be able to tell you those things. The other thing they'll be able to do is, so many law enforcement across the state across the country use what you refer to as a total workstation, which essentially is like a piece of surveying equipment. And you come through and you check out waypoints, and you're taking distances, and that goes from debris to the vehicle to the whole area. Well, a few years ago, I don't know if you remember, we did a press conference in Utica, and we switched over to a laser system. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it does this under the same concept, but what it does is it uses a laser, and the system spins and turns at the same time. So what it does is it takes laser pointed measurements. In addition, it takes photos as it's turning. So what it essentially is able to do is to recreate the scene in a video format.
Interesting.
And it's very good technology, and the state police do have the same system. So I'm assuming they're there doing that. And so what they're able to do is, based on all the information there, they'll actually be able to create a video, an animation of exactly how it occurred.
And when you talked about that black box, so you're saying it'll be able to record, like, at that exact moment what the speed was, or
so what it does
does it average out?
No, it'll be able to tell the speed. It'll also go backwards and give you some data, much of which I wouldn't be able to figure out and tell you what it means, but the experts can. They come and they take that data, and they'll be able to tell you a lot of conditions that the vehicle was experiencing at the time.
Now, let's say during the customization of the vehicle, the black box ends up being defective. Will they, based on impact, is there some formula that allows them to come up with an estimated speed?
Yeah. So accident reconstructionists, when you say no skid marks per se, that
there is that one big
you have marks
that was created. It seems from
you
from
have
the tire.
You have yaw marks and all these sorts of things where the tire turns sideways and makes marks. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and a lot of it goes. I've been on some of these scenes, and a lot of it goes over my head, because it's a real specialization to be an accident reconstructionist. Yeah. They go through a lot of schooling, and
this is not the state reconstructing this. This is the feds.
What I suspect they'll do is they'll probably run two investigations in which they share information collected.
Got it.
But they'll come, because I think they come at it from two different perspectives. I think the federal government's coming at it from a perspective of regulating limousines because of the transportation section of it, and then the state police will come from if there's any criminality.
This story has had such it's been on the national news for the last 3 nights. It was just on Fox News, top of the hour here. It is continuing and probably will continue until the funeral service because of all of the effect on so many people. I kind of feel like, and you mentioned this, that there might be some federal regulation. Are we missing regulation on these vehicles? At the very least, are we missing enforcement of the already set standards that are already out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that I don't have enough knowledge in the regulation of those things to be able to say whether there's enough or needs to be more or too much of it. But I think that if I've interacted many times with many of these limo drivers, in the city. You roll up and they're parked somewhere for some event. And they're very professional. And that always struck me that, there's sort of the calm force in these limos that sometimes get a little crazy and a little out of hand. I think most of them take it as a profession and they care about it. And that's locally. But, you move further closer to the city and, things change.
So the Examiner, and it might have been the Washington Post that first had this, USA Today has the story as well, that before the crash, one of the occupants, a female occupant in the vehicle, texted her mother and said, "Oh, my God, this limo is in such bad shape." Now we're finding out the limo had been benched, if you will, and was not supposed to be on the road. It did not pass inspection. And now we've learned that the bus that was supposed to be taking them, a limo bus, broke down, so they were forced to, let's salvage the party. And
save that income.
Yeah. So somewhere along the line, we've got to really adopt some standards to say, I'd rather lose the income than 20 lives.
Right, and I think that's where, if there's any criminality involved, you're going to see it. It's they saw a risk and they ignored it. And that would be horrific. It's certainly bad no matter what. But if something just happened to break down on something, listen, they're machines. Things break sometimes. But if it was, hey, we know there's a risk here, but we don't care because we want the money, well, then I think we're going to see some charges come out of that.
Especially if it has to do with the brakes.
And
that's something that could fail an inspection.
I can't think of any other reason other than a medical reason, why a driver would not, at least knowing there's a stop sign, not at least try to brake. Or is it possible that he stopped the road, veered to the left, and I don't want to throw things out there that were just hypothetical, but could have been distracted. Why no brakes?
Yeah,
why
we don't know that
brakes?
he didn't try.
Right.
You remember, you got anti-lock brakes.
Right.
So anti-lock brakes are not going to leave the skid pattern that conventional brakes, older brakes would. So, and a vehicle like that would have had anti-lock brakes. So you have to look at that too. So I think all of those things will come into play.
You got the owners of the place saying, we've been saying this intersection's really dangerous.
That's the other thing.
Tractor trailers that have been, at what point does this municipality or this?
I think everybody is potentially liable in this. Right down to that municipality or the county, the township.
Yeah, and that's something they'll look at for sure.
Yeah. All right, very interesting, Steve Hauck. We appreciate it as always, giving us an inside look at how long do you think does an investigation, a recreation like this take?
Well, the recreation itself, it's
cause. Will we know cause sometime in the next week? We're very impatient.
This will take some time. Yeah, they're going to do it. They'll do it right. They'll take their time and they'll double check and triple check it. So.
All right.
Don't be in any rush.
Okay. Security expert and former lieutenant with Utica Police Department, Steve Hauck. Thanks so much.
Sure.
We'll break.